Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Nick from Beer and Bat Reps, and I'm back to talk about Assault Intercessors. Now, these did not get a lot of traction back in the day when they first came out. They were kind of just seen as the worst version of Intercessors, but you're starting to see them creep up in MSU squads and competitive tournament lists. I've always loved them. More attacks, the better. As a Space Wolf player, you should love these guys. They're basically Blood Claws, but bigger and better. So we're going to go over the lore, strategy, stratagems, tactics, points, power value, statistics, synergies, anything we can think of. Now, be aware in terms of lore, like all the new Primaris units, there's almost none. I've scoured the internet, I've checked the books. The most you get is a small sentence or a small paragraph. So we kind of have to formulate our own lore for these guys, unfortunately. In my eyes, they are blood claws that have undergone the Primaris transformation, but maybe kept their youthful bloodthirstiness that makes them blood claws and not gray hunters. So gray hunters to me are more like intercessors, blood claws are more like assault intercessors. So as a fan of all things space wolves, assault, chainswords revving, this is one of my favorite units, and I think a real sleeper on the tabletop because of the new meta that kind of lean towards Drakari, small squishy units of mandrakes, incubi, witches, that type of thing. If you face lots of Tyranid infantry, if you face orcs, lots of infantry type, you're going to love these guys. You'll get a lot of bang for your buck. If you're looking for good small squads that can grab objectives, this might be the unit for you because they can easily go toe to toe with most other OBSEC, troop choices. So without further ado, let's dig in. Thank you for joining me. Once again, this is Nick from Beer and Bat Reps. Let's talk about Assault Intercessors. Okay, so Assault Intercessors are 5 models for 95 points or 10 models for 190 points. So they're 10 points cheaper than the regular Intercessors because their guns, clearly aren't as good, but they do have that extra attack, which makes them so tasty. Alright, so movement 6 inches, weapon skill 3 plus, ballistic skill 3 plus, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 2, attacks 2, leadership 7, 8 for the sergeant, and an extra attack for the sergeant. So right off the bat, pretty basic stat line. What makes them the main difference is they have that extra attack due to the Astartes Chainsword. That coupled with the Space Marine special rule in the first round of combat, you're looking at 4 attacks per model, 5 for the leader. So a full pack of 10, as I like to run them, it's going to get you 41 attacks, which is nothing to scoff about considering the +1 weapon skill for being a Space Wolf. You're looking at 41 attacks that hit on 2+. Astartes Chainswords have AP -1, which is really nice. If you can either use a stratagem or spell to get them into the Assault Doctrine quicker, which we'll go over later, you're looking at AP -2, 6s generate extra attacks, and you're hitting on 2s. There's some nasty strats that you can combine with this to make them really, really hit home. Now, the general rule of thought with these guys is, are you going to go full 10 packs or MSU 5 packs? What I like to do in my personal list, I'm bringing 4 units of 10, and then one of those units will combat squad into 2 smaller units to grab objectives, and then the other 3 will just go full force at the enemy. If I need to get a deeper objective closer to my opponents, I'll just put 10 of those guys right in their face and just say, this objective's mine. Feel free to fight me for it. I dare you. Not many things in the game want to fight Space Wolves. You're talking demons, orcs, certain Tyranids, certain Drakari, but like I said, Drakari's kind of squishy, so this is actually where Assault Intercessors are going to shine, in my opinion. Just the sheer number of attacks at strength 4 with AP 1 or 2 should be enough to handle most Drakari infantry units. One other thing I also want to make sure to point out is they have frag grenades, crack grenades, and heavy bolt pistols, which are 18-inch range, pistol 1, strength 4, AP -1, 1 damage. Easy to forget about, but when you have 10 packs, that's 10 more attacks, essentially, at strength 4, AP 1, to add to all your others. So don't forget about your pistols. Like I said, there's not much background online, but I did find this on GW's actual website. Assault Intercessors are amongst the most widespread close support units in the chapter's arsenal. Firing their heavy bolt pistols as they close upon the foe, they charge into the fray, where they can make short work of their enemies with brutal swings of their chainswords. Assault Intercessors are the perfect troop choice unit for players who favor more aggressive strategies or simply like to charge every enemy in sight. where they can put their brutal close combat range war gear to deadly use. Okay, real quick, I wanted to talk about character synergies with these guys. You have the obvious ones like the Chapter Master buff, the Commander reroll bubble, you have the Lieutenant reroll bubble, you have the Chaplains and all their litanies such as +2 to charge, +1 to wound, reroll misses. There's all kinds you can get from the Chaplain. Okay, I do want to talk about Instincts Awoken. It's a librarian spell that's a warp charge value of 6. Basically, you select a Space Wolf unit and it acts as if it's in the Assault Doctrine. So you get that extra AP, you get your exploding 6s to hit, where every 6 equals 2 hits. When you add that to a Timback of Assault Intercessors who already has 42 attacks, you're looking at a ton of attacks. And that helps if you are lucky enough to get into combat turn 1, or if you get into combat a little early on turn 2, you'll be able to hit them with that spell, make sure they get in there and start chopping stuff up. The other really good one is Stormcaller. Stormcaller is a warp charge value of 6. Basically, they receive light cover. So you're looking at Assault Intercessors with 2 wounds each and a 2+ armor save as they cross the table. So that does help a little bit. I know the guns in 40k are so strong, so it's still not that safe. The other thing you could do to keep them a little safer is you run the Librarian Discipline and you give them the Psychic Fortress, I believe it's called, so that they have a 5+ invulnerable save. That will help them as they cross the table, which, as we all know as Space Wolf players, is a very difficult task against certain opponents. While we're talking about psychic abilities, I want to talk about Cloaked by the Storm. It's a stratagem where if you successfully cast a spell from the Tempestus Discipline, you spend 2 CP and it makes a 6-inch bubble of -1 to hit from shooting attacks for all the units within 6 inches. So you could effectively have a bubble of +1 to your armor save and -1 to be hit. Now, you have to successfully cast a spell and spend 2 CP, but if you're crossing the table in one big castle, one big death ball, and there's no good buildings to hide behind, that's your best bet. And with that, let's dive straight into stratagems. We're going to go over the generic Space Marine ones first, which as a Space Wolf player you can use and you should use. They're incredibly strong. First one is Gene Rot Mite. It's 1 CP. It's one of my favorites. A Primaris infantry unit spends this CP and every 6 to hit auto wounds. You don't even have to roll a wound. So it's really, really good punching above your strength, T5 and up. If you find yourself going against vehicles, you know, giant monsters, greater demons, Imperial Knights, that type of thing, Chaos Knights, you definitely want to pop this because then you're looking at 42 attacks that hit on 2s. Your 6s are going to generate auto wounds. Now, if you're already in the Assault Doctrine, that means your 6s are generating an auto wound and another hit. Now, that second hit doesn't auto wound. It just counts as a hit, not necessarily a hit roll of 6. So if that makes any sense, every 6 that you're fishing for is going to auto wound and generate an extra attack. In the end, it may only net you a small handful of extra wounds, but against something really tough, you're going to take everything you can get. And if you're already in the Assault Doctrine, you're looking at AP2, which means even giant Night Titans are only having a 5+ save. So it's really nice. You want to get in there and start chopping stuff up. This helps against Gribblies as well. Say you're fighting a huge horde of Hormagaunts. So you're hitting on 2s with 42 attacks. 6s are going to generate some more hits. 6s are also going to generate auto wounds. And then with whatever you have left over, you're going to be wounding on 3s, giving them no save. So it can be really gross against super strong enemies, and it can help you just net even more efficiency and wounds against really weak enemies. Either way, it's only 1 CP. It's amazing. I basically do it every single game and don't even think twice about it. Gene Rot Mite. Okay, you knew it was coming. It's Transhuman Physiology. Basically how this works for any and all Space Marines, as long as they are Primaris, you spend 1 CP if they're 5 models or less, or 2 CPs if they're more than 5 models, and it makes it so your opponent has to wound you on a 4 or higher, regardless of their strength characteristic of their weapon. So you have a bunch of las cannons incoming, you pop this, and instead of them wounding you on 2s, they're wounding you on 4s. So effectively saving half of your wounds right off the bat. Now, it being cheaper for a small unit does tend to make people want to bring MSU, which totally works with Assault Intercessors. You still get a good amount of attacks. But for me, I like bigger units. It makes the buffs go further. It makes it so when I hit, I kill, and there's no doubt about it. I want to make sure in the very limited amount of assaults I have in the game that I win. That I just win that assault and crush my opponent. So spending 2 CPs to make this big 10 pack have transhuman is totally worth it. I mean, I'm starting with a battalion, so I get 12 right off the bat. So I got plenty of CP to spend. Transhuman Physiology is arguably the best stratagem in all of Warhammer. So, there no more can be said. It's essential. It's essential to Space Marines. Now, a lot of people have some gripes against it because it used to work for all Space Marines. Now it's just Primaris, but Primaris is the way of the future, people. You can hang on to your Vanguard vets with Lightning Claws and Jump Packs as long as you can, but eventually Primaris is the way things are going to go. So if you're a Space Wolf player, you should already be in the mindset that Assault Intercessors are Blood Claws and Intercessors are Grey Hunters. So back to Transhuman, don't leave home without it. It's amazing. If you know you're just going to get crushed by some incredibly strong shooting attack, pop Transhuman, save yourself. And now we come to Honor the Chapter. It is a favorite. It is attack twice. Now across the board on most Warhammer armies, they have attack twice stratagems, and they're usually 3 command points. This is only 2. And the reason it's only 2 is it's only for Assault Intercessors, the unit that we are talking about. They're the only things that can use it, and they get to fight twice. So now you're looking at 82 attacks that hit on 2s. That's before any other strats. 82 attacks that hit on 2s. So if you just need to make sure something dies, if it's an important swingy combat in the middle of the game or towards the end of the game and you have to cut through, pop this, fight twice. In all honesty, if you're running lots of Assault Intercessors like I am, I'm going to use this every single chance I get. I may only get 3 turns throughout the entire game where Assault Intercessors are fighting, and I can only use this once a turn, so I'm going to use it all 3 of those turns. I'm going to fight twice every chance I get unless I just wipe my opponent. It's that good. I mean, what else can you say? You get to fight twice with your unit that has the most attacks. If it's turn 3 or on, or you used a stratagem or a spell to make sure you're in the Assault Doctrine, you're looking at generating extra attacks on 6s and an extra AP. So you're looking at AP 2 with 82 attacks. What more can be said? Honor the Chapter. It's a stratagem people don't even realize exists because no one runs these guys, but people are starting to realize how good Assault Intercessors are, and I'm here to tell you first, if you can stick to cover and you can get into combats that are favorable for you, these guys will do work. But just don't forget to honor the chapter. At last, we get to the Space Wolf specific stratagems. These are just for us, Sons of Russ. First up, Savage Strike. 1 CP for 5 or less models, 2 CP for over 5. +1 to wound in combat if you charged that turn. So howl a bloodthirsty howl to the moon and charge headlong into your enemies. Just think about combining this with everything else we've talked about. 6s to auto wound, extra attacks on 6s, attacking twice with Honor the Chapter strat we just talked about, and now +1 to wound on top of everything else. So we basically cherry-picked the best thing about Blood Angels, and we said this is for us too. So once again, yet another strat that combos really well with Assault Intercessors. We want a bucket of dice that hit on 2s, preferably with a reroll from a captain. So insane efficiency. And then with that bucket of dice, we now want +1 to wound with good AP. Well, this unit has it all. So when you start stacking all these things, you're starting to realize how powerful this unit can be. The next borderline essential one that I've mentioned a couple times is Besteel Nature. It's 1 CP, select a unit, and they're going to be in the Assault Doctrine. So if you can get to combat before turn 3, pop this so that you're already in the Assault Doctrine. It's only 1 CP, it's going to generate you that extra AP, and it's going to give you those exploding 6s, which is kind of essential to everything we've talked about. So now you have a spell that puts a unit in the Assault Doctrine, and a strat that puts another unit in the Assault Doctrine. So if you're lucky enough to get to combat turn 2, which a lot of games you will if your opponent's coming to you as well, or if you have a really fast transport, you now have ways to be in the Assault Doctrine even quicker for that tasty AP2, which really helps against Space Marines and other hard targets. It's only 1 CP, It's really, really good. There's also a generic Space Marine one that can get a third unit into it. So it starts adding up in terms of CP, but these guys are good, and you want them in Assault Doctrine as fast as you can. The next two kind of go together in that they're movement-based and kind of surprise shenanigans against opponents. First one is Relentless Assault, so you consolidate an extra 3 inches. I personally don't use this too often because I'm usually near Ragnar, and he just gives that out for free. But basically it's 1 CP, and you're going to consolidate 6 inches instead of 3. In a game with lots of guns that aren't necessarily pistols, you're going to want to tag opponents as fast as possible. So if you can kill an opponent and then consolidate 6 into another unit and tie that up, that's pretty good. So definitely keep that in mind. The next one is Countercharge. All Space Wolves, as you know, can heroically intervene. This is 1 CP, and it lets them heroically intervene 6 inches instead of 3. So really good for babysitting a weaker unit and just saying, hey, if you charge this weaker unit or this character, you also got to fight this whole squad. So it's kind of a safety thing. Also, don't forget, Countercharge is 0 CP for characters. So lots of fun between those two, lots of surprise pouncing on people. They're not as much about pure offensive output as they are about winning in the movement phase or winning with inches in a game of inches. So it's pretty important. Keep in mind Relentless Assault and Countercharge in the back of your head when you're adding up how much CP you want to spend. Last but certainly not least is Keen Senses. It's 1 CP, and it lets you ignore modifiers with your ballistic skill, weapon skill, or charging. So if you have to charge through a forest that's -1 inches, you pop this so you can ignore that. If you're facing an enemy that is -1 to hit, such as a Keeper of Secrets of Slanesh, or there's been hints that the new Harlequins are going to be -1 to hit in combat, this is when you pop the Keen Senses strat to ignore all modifiers, so you can just guarantee you're hitting on 2s. Now, there are better units that can use this, such as Thunderhammer equipped units, or like heavy weapons while moving. But if you find yourself wanting as many attacks hitting as efficiently as possible against a big nasty Keeper of Secrets, this is the strat for you. Keen Senses, ignore modifiers when rolling to hit. So there's a couple Warlord traits and relics that actually can buff your Assault Intercessors. First of all is Wolfkin. Wolfkin, the aura is while a friendly Space Wolf core unit is within 6 inches of this model, this unit is always treated as having made a charge move for the purposes of shock assault. So you're going to get that extra attack every turn. So that's a really good Warlord trait. Obviously you have to do the deed of the Wolfkin first to activate the aura, but it's easy to do and well worth it. If you want to keep those attacks coming for prolonged combats. The next one is the Wolfen Stone. So the Wolfen Stone is once per battle. At the start of the fight phase, you can evoke the spirits of the Wolfen. If it does, select one friendly Space Wolf unit within 6 inches that has the Savage Fury ability, which is these guys. And until the end of the phase, you're generating extra attacks on a 5+ instead of a 6+. So you can really see how these start to add up with just tons and tons and tons of dice at high efficiency. Nowadays, people want super strong weapons that do D3+3 damage at AP4, blah, 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 blah. Give me a bucket of attacks that hit on 2s at AP2. That's what I want. I want extreme efficiency. So in today's 9th edition, you can see lots and lots of buildings and line of sight blocking terrain to hide behind as you move up the field. So it's a really good time to be a Space Wolf player based on combat. With that being said, you're seeing more and more combat armies at each tournament or gathering because of that. So expect there to be bloodthirsty, action-packed games. Whether it's Drakari that want to come fight, whether it's Gene Stealer Colts with tons of pure strain Gene Stealers coming your way, big hordes of orcs. There are lots and lots of combatants that now think of 9th edition as more of a combat edition because there's so many big buildings blocking all the line of sight. So expect some nasty, nasty fights, and that's why I like these guys. Against certain opponents, their hits may bounce a little bit, like against, let's say, Deathwing Knights with 0+ armor saves. But against a lot of the weaker, squishier opponents like Xenos, Guardsmen, Demons, there's so many types of objective grabbing units in the game that these guys will just cut through like butter. So I personally think I'm going to find a ton of uses for these guys, and I hope you will too. Please tell me if there's any stratagems, synergies I left out, because like I always say, I'm learning with you guys. I want to use these to my best effect on the table. So if I'm missing something obvious, please tell me, because I'm going to use it. This is Nick from Beer and Bat Reps. I'm going to keep churning out these Space Wolf specific units because I love the Space Wolves. So until we talk again, this is Nick from Beer and Bat Reps. Cheers.